That's the thing about COVID-19. It doesn't care about how rich you are, how famous you are, how funny you are, how smart you are, where you live, how old you are, what amazing stories you can tell. It's the Great Equalizer. And what's terrible about it is what's great about it. What's terrible about it is it's made us all equal in many ways.
As the current crisis of COVID-19 wages on, this statement, the Great Equalizer, is being used more and more to describe the effects of the virus not only on those who have been infected, but also those who have been affected by the loss of jobs, financial instability, and other personal burdens. The virus infects people of all ages, gender, and economic standing. It may seem as if everyone has been impacted equally, and yet.
We turn our attention now to the low-income Americans who are bearing the brunt of the coronavirus fallout.
In just the past week, more than 6.5 million new claims have been made. This is the sharpest ever rise in unemployment, and this takes the number of jobs lost over the past 3 weeks to more than 15 million.
They tell us coronavirus is a great leveler. It's not. It's much, much harder if you're poor.
So how can this virus be considered the Great Equalizer? We spoke to Ms. Sarah Drake, an NYU professor of urban planning and an expert in the housing and community development of New York City, to find out more.
I don't find it equalizing at all. I guess if you're, it can feel a little random in the sense that the people who suddenly need childcare or suddenly are unemployed, it may feel like it's or who have actually caught the virus can all feel random, but that doesn't make it an equalizer. So I find that a little baffling, actually. Perhaps it's an equalizer among the top 1% in making them feel some discomfort, but I don't see it as an equalizer at all. There's a real difference in what the haves have and what the have-nots don't have. So I think there needs to be an acceptance that that this is going to hit everybody somewhat unequally, and that we should be okay with that, because that's what a safety net is about.
Let's go back to the beginning. Coronavirus was first discovered in November of 2019 in Wuhan, China, but the first cases were found in the United States in mid-January of 2020. The virus spread quickly. Students like ourselves were sent home from school, and most states went into lockdown by mid-March. People were at first told to quarantine for 14 days. This has turned into months of isolation. The pandemic has had a huge effect on the economic inequality found in America. According to the NYU Furman Center of Housing, Neighborhoods, and Urban Policy, cases are not evenly distributed across the city of New York, nor is the mortality from the disease. Neighborhoods with higher rates of confirmed COVID-19 cases have lower median incomes. Residents of these neighborhoods are less likely to be able to work from home, disproportionately rely on public transit during the crisis, and are less likely to have internet access. It is becoming more apparent that people of lower incomes are at a higher risk of becoming infected and dying than their wealthier neighbors, and students of lower incomes have less resources to continue their education during quarantine compared to their wealthier classmates. In general, poorer families face the burden with the pandemic more heavily. This virus is no great equalizer. In fact, it has only caused greater inequality. You can see the disparities in lifestyles during the pandemic when celebrities are complaining of being stuck in their multi-million-dollar mansions, yachts, and vacation homes.
Even if everybody gets it, yeah, people are gonna die.
It feels inappropriate and condescending for those who may be the most privileged in America to complain about their situation. Granted, everyone is experiencing this drastic lifestyle change. However, it feels as if the wealthy are ignorant of those in need. We wanted to know more about the actions, if any, that are being taken by elected officials to limit the growing inequality and the potential long-term effects of the virus. So we reached out to Dr. Robert Hawkins, an associate professor at New York University.
So I think the local government and the state governments are they're doing well. I do feel that they could do more. I think they are more focused on the general population than on low-income folks. But I know that low-income families and individuals are part of the calculation. Now, at the federal level, we've reached a point where if President Trump says it, it probably isn't true. He's either lying or he doesn't know. So it's interesting to me to watch a press briefing and still not know what's going on. In fact, know less than I did when I came in. There are experts usually on the panel that are trying to communicate. It's almost like in code to us. It's like, all right, we know what he just said, but let me talk around it to not offend him, but hopefully you know what I mean. And that is, well, frightening. So what's being done is, I'm afraid, a little too little too late. You know, there's a couple of theories about how people are marginalized and why certain countries are poor. One of those theories, within one of those theories, is the idea of poor governance, and which we never had before. We had governance where people disagreed with each other. We had governance where people took one action and there would be certain people who disagreed with it, or people who said, I would have done something else. But what we haven't had, at least in my lifetime, is what political scientists call poor governance, meaning a breakdown in the governing system that actually hurts the people. We are there now.
We were shocked to hear that not enough is being done to not only help prevent the virus from spreading, but also the inequality that has increased with it from reoccurring. It is disheartening to think that families that are now facing financial burdens will continue to well into the future. What may feel like a short-term issue now will have long-lasting effects for many low-income families. Economically and socially, this pandemic is really not the great equalizer that Madonna had envisioned from her tub. But all of the evidence thus far don't completely discount the term great equalizer either. As our society becomes more polarized, whether that be politically, economically, and so on, we lose much of the common ground which unites us as a nation. And so we find that maybe the pandemic is our common ground. This crisis has allowed many to fight for one cause through donations, community service, and other forms of assistance for those who cannot fight for themselves. Billionaires like Bill Gates and Jack Dorsey are already pledging millions of dollars to coronavirus relief funds. Those who do not have the means to donate money have donated their time to helping the homeless and others of similar circumstances. We may not be equal in our economic and social status, but we are all equal in our efforts to get through this pandemic together. It is easy to see the COVID-19 pandemic as only negative, but maybe we can learn from this.
I think we can learn that as a society, everyone does not have the same shot.
I like to think that when this happens again, that we will have access to more resources. And I think folks will be better prepared. Cities will be better prepared, not-for-profits will be better prepared to address some of these issues.
The pandemic may not be a great equalizer, but this crisis still serves as a warning that if we refuse to address the growing disparities in lifestyles, there will be deeper societal divides that break apart our nation.
Our country is going through a crisis. There is no doubt about that. It has shown us the best and worst that society has to offer.
When this is all over, there can be no doubt that we as a nation have survived this extremely trying time together.
And that we have to stand tall in our path back to normalcy, for better or for worse.